The troubling thing about humans, Grand Vizier Clox Pitar announced to the assembled Galactic Council, his 17 eye stalks quivering with irritation, is that they make absolutely no sense. The council chamber rumbled with clicks, whistles, and gurgles of agreement. The 300-year-old debate hadn't progressed an inch since humans first stumbled onto the galactic stage with their primitive warp drives and inexplicable ability to win conflicts they had no business winning. Consider the Battle of Proxima Centauri, continued Clox Pitar, slapping a tentacle against the holographic display. Their fleet was outnumbered 6-1. Their technology was 2 generations behind. Half their ships had engine problems. And yet, they won, chorused the council in weary unison. Commander Jax Boyle slouched further into her seat at the back of the chamber, trying to become invisible. No such luck. Ah, Commander Boyle. Clox Pitar's voice boomed. Perhaps you can explain to us how your species defeated the Kral Armada without a coherent battle plan. Jax stood reluctantly, cleared her throat, and offered the same explanation she'd given dozens of times before. We improvised. The translator rendered this into standard galactic, but the concept clearly didn't translate. 17 eye stalks blinked in perfect synchronicity. You made it up as you went along? Clox Pitar clarified, his translator struggling with the concept. Pretty much. The chamber erupted in chirps of disbelief and tentacles gesturing wildly. The Galactic Council had been studying human military success for decades, convinced there must be some secret weapon or strategy. The truth that humans mostly just winged it was apparently too ridiculous to accept. Which is why, Clox Pitar continued after restoring order, Commander Boyle will be attending the military summit on Nexus Prime to finally document the human military methodology for the Galactic Archives. Jax blinked. I will? Your ship leaves in 1 hour, Clox Pitar said with finality. You will explain your species' inexplicable success to our finest military minds. As Jax trudged out of the council chamber, her communicator buzzed. Admiral Hayes, her superior back on Earth. Bad news, Boyle, Hayes's gravelly voice announced. You've been volunteered to explain human warfare to a bunch of confused aliens. Just found out, sir. Any idea what you're going to tell them? Jax sighed. Not a clue, sir. I'll figure it out when I get there. Hayes laughed. That's the human spirit. No plan survives first contact anyway. As her ship departed for Nexus Prime, Jax couldn't help but smile at the irony. She was being sent to explain human military strategy, and her approach to this diplomatic mission was naturally to have no strategy at all. Nexus Prime gleamed like a polished diamond against the velvet backdrop of space. As Jax's shuttle approached the renowned neutral planet, she spotted hundreds of ships from across the galaxy docked at the orbiting platforms, all here for the Summit on Understanding Human Military Tactics. No pressure, she muttered to herself. The welcome committee consisted of 3 very different aliens, each looking more uncomfortable than the last. Admiral Vrax of the Taurian Collective stood tall and rigid, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the arrival bay. Beside him fidgeted Diplomat Qualo, a Mobonian whose gelatinous form rippled with what Jax recognized as nervous energy. Completing the trio was General Thorn of the Draxid Empire, whose 4 arms were crossed in pairs in what Jax had learned was the universal gesture for I don't believe this nonsense. Commander Boyle, Admiral Vrax inclined his crested head formally. Welcome to Nexus Prime. We anticipate learning much from you. Though I must confess, burbled Diplomat Qualo, his translucent body flushing pink, we've been studying human warfare for decades without comprehension. Your species seems to violate every established principle of military doctrine. General Thorn's mechanical translator produced a sound suspiciously like a snort. What the diplomat means is that we don't understand how a species that still uses combustion engines, some of their vehicles, managed to defeat the Kral. Jax smiled pleasantly. "Happy to clear things up." "Excellent," said Admiral Vrax. "We've prepared a comprehensive 3-week program of lectures, demonstrations, and historical analysis." 3 weeks? Jax blurted. "I was thinking more like 3 hours?" The aliens exchanged glances. Qualo's body turned a deeper shade of pink. "Commander," Vrax said slowly, as if explaining to a child, "military doctrine requires meticulous documentation. We have assembled 200 of the galaxy's premier strategists to learn from you." "Right," Jax nodded. "Lead the way." The conference room was packed with aliens of all descriptions, each equipped with recording devices and translation modules. Jax took her place at the podium, staring out at the expectant faces, stalks, sensory clusters, and whatever passed for eyes among the assembled species. So, she began awkwardly, human military tactics. 200 note-taking appendages raised simultaneously. "Perhaps," suggested Admiral Vrax, "you could begin by explaining the human concept of winging it that appears in so many of your battle reports." "Absolutely," Jax said brightly. "Winging it means, well, it means making decisions in the moment based on the situation at hand." General Thorne's head spines rose in agitation. "But where is the 1,000-page operational manual? Where are the contingency plans for every possible scenario?" "We don't really do those," Jax admitted. "Then how do your subordinates know what to do?" demanded a tentacled alien from the third row. "They also wing it?" The room erupted in confused chittering. Diplomat Qualo oozed slightly lower in his containment suit. "Commander Boyle is obviously employing the famous human humor to test our reactions," he suggested hopefully. "Actually, I'm being completely serious," Jax countered. Admiral Vrax's scales darkened with what Jax recognized as the Taurian equivalent of a frown. "Commander, we have dedicated significant resources to this summit. If you could please take our inquiry seriously." "I am," Jax protested. "Look, humans are adaptable. We don't like rigid structures. When circumstances change, we change with them." "But how do you plan for this adapting?" asked a crystalline being from the back row, clearly struggling with the concept. Jax sighed. This was going to be a long 3 weeks. Day 3 of the summit found Jax pacing in front of a holographic display, showing the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the conflict that had the entire galactic community baffled. So here, she pointed to the human fleet's chaotic formation. Captain Rodriguez realized the enemy's shield frequencies were fluctuating in a predictable pattern, and she ordered her ships to fire at precisely timed intervals. "But that wasn't in the original battle plan," objected Admiral Vrax, consulting his notes. "There wasn't really an original battle plan," Jax explained for what felt like the 100th time. "Rodriguez saw an opportunity and took it." "Without consulting high command?" General Thorne looked scandalized, all 4 of his hands clutching his datapad in distress. "There wasn't time," Jax said. "In battle, seconds matter." "But how did she know it would work?" demanded a Valerian scientist, her feathers bristling. Jax threw up her hands. She didn't. It was an educated guess that paid off. The room fell silent, 100 alien faces displaying various expressions of horror. "Perhaps," suggested Diplomat Qualo gently, his gelatinous form quivering, "we should move on to another example. The Martian defense of 2198, perhaps." Jax groaned internally. The Martian defense was even worse in terms of explaining human tactics. "Very well," she agreed, changing the display. "Here we have Earth's Mars colony defended by exactly 6 outdated warships against 30 Krail destroyers." The aliens leaned forward eagerly. Surely this would reveal the human secret weapon. Commander Ortiz, in charge of Mars defense, had all 6 ships vent their reactor coolant into space, creating a cloud that appeared on Krail sensors as a massive radiation leak. "A clever deception," nodded Admiral Vrax approvingly. And then they deployed your secret weapon? No, Jax said. Then Ortiz had his ship's power down completely to avoid detection, drift through the coolant cloud, and attach mining explosives to the hulls of the Kral ships while they were distracted scanning the radiation leak. General Thorne's mechanical translator emitted a string of untranslatable expletives. That's not warfare. That's improvisation, Jax supplied. Reckless, Thorne corrected, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. A tall, spindly alien that Jax recognized as a Zelnid philosopher rose to speak. What if the Krael had not been deceived by the coolant? What was the backup plan? There wasn't one, Jax admitted. The room erupted again. In the ensuing chaos, Diplomat Qualo oozed over to Jax. Commander, he burbled quietly, I believe I understand your reluctance to share your true secrets. Rest assured, this is a secure facility. Jax blinked. I'm not hiding anything. Of course, Qualo's translucent form rippled with what might have been a wink. Your winging it explanation is most entertaining. But surely, between us, there must be something more. Jax sighed deeply. Look, throughout human history, some of our greatest military victories came from completely unorthodox approaches that nobody saw coming, not even us sometimes. We call it thinking outside the box. Ah, Qualo brightened considerably. This box must be your secret technology. A quantum prediction matrix, perhaps. No, it's just an expression, Jax said wearily. It means thinking differently than expected. As the debate continued around them, Admiral Vrax approached with a gleam in his reptilian eyes. Commander Boyle, he said, perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than these historical reviews. Would you be willing to participate in a simulated military exercise? Jax perked up. Finally, something other than trying to explain the unexplainable. Absolutely, she agreed. When do we start? Tomorrow, Admiral Vrax announced to the room, silencing the arguments. Commander Boyle will demonstrate human tactical thinking against our best strategists. As the excited aliens filed out, chattering about the upcoming demonstration, General Thorne loomed over Jax. I have studied every recorded human conflict, he rumbled. I still believe you are concealing your true methods. Jax smiled wearily. Guess you'll find out tomorrow. The simulation chamber on Nexus Prime was a marvel of technology, a massive room where holographic projections created convincing replicas of ships, terrain, and battle conditions. Jax stood on a raised platform facing a similar platform where Admiral Vrax, General Thorne, and a team of alien strategists huddled over tactical displays. The observation gallery was packed with summit attendees, eager to finally see human military genius in action. The parameters are simple, announced the simulation's AI moderator. Each team commands a fleet of equivalent strength. The objective is to capture the opposing team's command station while defending your own. Jax surveyed her holographic fleet, 20 warships of various classes arranged in standard formation. She had been assigned a team of 4 nervous-looking alien cadets who had studied human tactics and volunteered to serve under her command. Traditional doctrine suggests we establish a defensive perimeter while sending scout ships to locate the enemy command station, offered one cadet, a young Taurian whose scales hadn't yet fully hardened. Jax grinned. Let's do something else. Across the chamber, Admiral Vrax's team was methodically diagramming their approach, creating contingency plans, and running probability calculations. General Thorne was dictating a complex series of maneuvers designed to systematically eliminate any possible threat. Meanwhile, Jax was drawing confused stares from her team. You want to do what? Asked a Valerian cadet, her feathers standing on end. Split our fleet into 4 groups, Jax repeated. But make it look like we're keeping them together by maintaining shared communication signals. But standard doctrine clearly states. We're not using standard doctrine, Jax interrupted. We're using human doctrine. Trust me. The cadets exchanged skeptical glances but followed her orders. As the simulation began, Admiral Vrax's forces moved with precision, establishing sensor networks and defensive formations exactly as military textbooks would prescribe. Jax's strategy, by contrast, appeared completely haphazard. Her ships moved in seemingly random patterns, sometimes appearing to blunder directly into danger before veering away at the last moment. In the observation gallery, the alien strategists watched in bewilderment. But is this some form of elaborate deception? Wondered Diplomat Qualo. It appears to be pure chaos, observed the Zelnid philosopher. 2 hours into the simulation, Admiral Vrax's forces had established complete tactical control of the battlefield. His sensor network had located Jax's command station and his main fleet was moving in for the kill while a defensive screen protected his own command center. The human strategy has failed, General Thorne announced smugly to the observation gallery. Their unpredictability is no match for proper military doctrine. At that exact moment, alarms began blaring throughout Admiral Vrax's command network. Somehow, a small group of Jax's ships had slipped through their sensor grid and were attacking the command station from an unexpected vector. Impossible. Vrax hissed, his scales darkening in distress. Our sensors showed no approaching vessels. On her platform, Jax smiled. We masked our engine signatures by flying through that radiation belt you were avoiding. Basic physics, the radiation scrambled your sensors just enough for us to slip through. As Vrax frantically redirected his forces to defend his command station, he realized too late that it was a trap. The bulk of Jax's fleet, which had appeared scattered and disorganized, suddenly converged on his now vulnerable main force. When the simulation ended 20 minutes later, Jax's team had achieved a decisive victory. The observation gallery was silent with shock. Admiral Vrax approached Jax, his scaled head tilted in genuine curiosity. You deliberately appeared weak and disorganized to draw us into a trap. This was your plan from the beginning, so. Well, Jax hedged. I had a general idea, but I adapted as opportunities presented themselves. But the radiation belt maneuver, surely that was pre-planned? Insisted General Thorne. Actually, I only noticed the radiation belt about an hour into the simulation, Jax admitted. It seemed like a good way to hide our approach. The aliens stared at her in disbelief. You're saying your victory was accidental? Diplomat Qualo burbled incredulously. Not accidental, Jax corrected. Opportunistic. As the stunned aliens processed this information, an urgent message interrupted the proceedings. A communications officer burst into the simulation chamber, his gravity suit pulsing with emergency lights. Admiral Vrax, he gasped. Space pirates are attacking the research outpost on Nexus II. They've already disabled the defense grid. Vrax's scales paled. Nexus II? That's where we're developing the new quantum shield technology. Jax stepped forward. How far away is it? 30 minutes at maximum warp, the officer replied. I know those pirates, growled General Thorne. The Scarlet Corsairs. They never attack without perfect intelligence and overwhelming force. Admiral Vrax was already issuing orders. Assemble the defense fleet. We need a full tactical analysis, threat assessment, and response protocol. Jax caught his eye. Admiral, the pirates will be gone with your quantum tech long before your protocol is complete. What do you suggest? Vrax asked, suddenly open to human tactics in a way he hadn't been before. Jax grinned. I suggest we wing it. 27 minutes later, a single unmarked transport ship dropped out of warp near Nexus IE. The research station hung in space, surrounded by 5 sleek pirate vessels identifiable by their distinctive red hulls. They haven't spotted us yet, whispered Diplomat Qualo, who had insisted on joining the mission despite his gelatinous body being poorly suited for combat. Jax nodded from the pilot's seat. Beside her, Admiral Vrax and General Thorn monitored sensor readings with increasing alarm. "The pirates are already docking with the station," Thorn reported. "And they've disabled communications. We can't warn the researchers." "We need to wait for reinforcements," Vrax insisted. "The defense fleet will arrive in approximately 2 hours." "In 2 hours, those pirates will be halfway across the galaxy with your quantum shield technology," Jax pointed out. "We need to act now." "With what?" Thorn demanded. "One unarmed transport against 5 pirate warships." Jax studied the sensor readings, a plan forming. "Those pirate ships all use the same design. Standard Krell-class raiders, right?" Admiral Vrax nodded. "Highly maneuverable, but with a known weakness in their aft shield generators." "A weakness we can't exploit without weapons," Thorn added bitterly. Jax grinned. "Who says we need weapons? Does this transport have a tractor beam?" Qualo burbled anxiously. "A very weak one used for docking procedures only." "Perfect," Jax said, already plotting a course. "And the cargo bay is filled with those gravitational research modules you were transporting to the summit, right?" "Yes, but—" "Here's the plan," Jax interrupted. "We're going to use the tractor beam to launch those modules at the pirates' aft shields." General Thorn's translator produced what sounded like a choking noise. "You want to throw science equipment at warships?" "The modules generate localized gravitational fields," Jax explained, "if we activate them just before impact. The gravitational distortion could disrupt their shield harmonics." Admiral Vrax realized, his scales brightening with excitement. "Exactly," Jax confirmed. "Then we use the confusion to dock with the station and stop the pirates from inside." Diplomat Qualo rippled anxiously. "This plan violates 17 different sections of the Galactic Military Code. There's no tactical precedent for such an approach." "That's why it'll work," Jax said confidently. "The pirates won't see it coming." Despite their reservations, the aliens helped prepare the gravitational modules. As they approached the pirate vessels, moving slowly to avoid detection, Jax noticed General Thorn watching her curiously. "You genuinely believe this will succeed," he observed. "Waxpa." Jax shrugged. It might not. But sitting here doing nothing definitely won't work." "How do you humans live with such uncertainty?" Thorn wondered. "Mieux." "We find it exciting," Jax replied with a grin. The plan worked better than even Jax had anticipated. The gravitational modules not only disrupted the pirates' shields but created such havoc with their sensors that they began firing on each other in confusion. In the chaos, Jax's transport docked with the station unnoticed. Inside, they found the pirates rounding up researchers and attempting to download the quantum shield data. What followed was a chaotic scramble through the station's corridors, Jax making split-second decisions, the aliens following her lead with increasing confidence. Using the station's environmental systems, maintenance robots, and even the artificial gravity controls, they systematically confused, separated, and ultimately captured the pirate boarding party without firing a single shot. When the defense fleet finally arrived 2 hours later, they found the pirate ships disabled and the boarding party secured in the station's storage lockers. Admiral Vrax stared at Jax with newfound respect. "You protected the quantum shield technology with maintenance robots and gravity controls." "Sometimes the best weapon is whatever's handy," Jax replied with a shrug. General Thorn shook his head in amazement. "In all my cycles of military service, I have never seen such unorthodox tactics." "I think," burbled Diplomat Qualo, his gelatinous form now a pleased shade of blue, "we are finally beginning to understand." The final day of the summit had a very different atmosphere than the first. The aliens who had initially regarded Jax with skepticism now watched her with something approaching awe, or at least bewildered respect. Admiral Vrax stood before the assembled delegates, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. After extensive observation and practical demonstration, we have reached a conclusion regarding human military methodology. The chamber fell silent in anticipation. Humans, Vrax announced formally, possess no secret technology, no hidden advantage, and no superior tactical doctrine. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the audience. Instead, Vrax continued, they possess something far more difficult to quantify, an innate cognitive flexibility that allows them to disregard established protocols when circumstances demand it. General Thorne stepped forward, his forearms clasped in what Jax now recognized as a gesture of profound respect. In military terms, humans are chaos engines. They succeed not despite their lack of rigid planning, but because of it. Diplomat Qualo bubbled enthusiastically. After analyzing Commander Boyle's approach during the pirate incident, we've identified 3 key components of human tactical thinking: adaptability, improvisation, and a peculiar willingness to accept risk. Jax watched with amusement as the summit delegates furiously took notes, still trying to codify and systematize what was essentially the absence of a system. Commander Boyle, Admiral Vrax invited, would you care to anything to our findings? Jax approached the podium and looked out at the expectant faces. You've been trying to understand how humans win wars without effort. The truth is, it's not without effort, it's without rigidity. Throughout our history, humans have faced predators faster and stronger than us, enemies better armed and more numerous. We survived and thrived not by following a perfect plan, but by changing the plan when it stopped working. She paused, searching for the right words. The best human commanders know that no plan survives contact with the enemy. So instead of perfecting the plan, we perfect our ability to make new plans on the fly. The chamber was silent as the aliens contemplated this profound and, to many of them, profoundly disturbing concept. Finally, the Zelnid philosopher who had questioned Jax earlier rose to speak. But how can we incorporate this unpredictability into our military doctrines? That's just it, Jax smiled. You can't write a manual on how to throw away the manual. But maybe you don't need to be human to think like us sometimes. Maybe you just need to be willing to trust your instincts when the situation calls for it. As the summit concluded and Jax prepared to return to Earth, Admiral Vrax approached her one last time. We've prepared a comprehensive report on human military methodology for the Galactic Archives, he said, handing her a data crystal. Though I suspect it will confuse future scholars as much as you've confused us. Jax laughed. What does it say? The secret to human military success, Vrax quoted solemnly, is that there is no secret, and that itself is the secret. As her shuttle departed Nexus Prime, Jax couldn't help but smile. The aliens had spent 3 weeks trying to understand how humans win wars without effort, only to discover that the effort was simply applied differently than they expected. And in typical human fashion, Jax had succeeded in her diplomatic mission by having absolutely no plan for how to accomplish it. Some things, it seemed, would never change, which was, perhaps, the most human approach of all.